Well, there's a new book out detailing the life of Harvey Weinstein, how he rose to fame, became a dominant figure in the film industry, and used his position to take advantage of so many people in their careers before his own career came crashing down.
The book is called Hollywood Ending: Harvey Weinstein and the Culture of Silence. It is written by Ken Auletta. He's covered Hollywood and the media power game for The New Yorker for 3 decades. And Ken joins us live this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. When you look at this story, you think about all these huge stars that either had heard rumors about Harvey Weinstein or were actually alleged victims of Harvey Weinstein, including Ashley Judd. It's incredible to think that this went on for decades without actually hitting major media. Why do you think that is? It's because he was just so powerful?
Powerful, and as a powerful man, he understood, or he believed, as I think people like Donald Trump believe, that fear is essential to power. And these people feared exposing Harvey Weinstein. In some cases, they signed non-disclosure agreements so they couldn't disclose it. But in many cases, people who work for Harvey, people who work with him in Hollywood, they knew he was cheating on his wife, and many knew he was actually abusing women and kept their mouth shut.
Wow.
Does it say something about the entertainment journalists who cover that industry?
Yeah, there's a lot of back scratching. I mean, people who love salacious stories, and Harvey was a salacious story waiting to happen, yet kept their mouths shut. Why? Because they were getting things from Harvey. They didn't want to pursue it. He was inviting them to screenings. He was inviting them to parties. He was giving them gossip items in exchange for access to him, and people didn't feel an incentive to expose him, and they should have.
I didn't realize this, that he grew up in a housing project in Queens, and you spoke with his brother. Was there anything in his background that would have indicated that he was going to have these issues later on, or even in terms of how powerful that he became?
I learned 2 things about going through his childhood and talking to people who grew up with him. One is that the yelling that was a symbol and very much a part of Harvey Weinstein's career came from his mother, Miriam. His friends would not play poker at the Weinstein home on weekends because Miriam was yelling all the time, and it was embarrassing. So Harvey's yelling was very much a reflection of his mother, but that doesn't explain his sexual behavior. Mm-hmm. And as best I could determine it, Harvey did not abuse women all through junior high school and high school. And actually the first 3 years at the University of Buffalo. He didn't start abusing women until he had power. And power became an aphrodisiac for him. He felt he was entitled at that point with that kind of power to take advantage of women, and he did.
Does it say something about our values as a country that there are powerful people today, and people are pointing fingers at powerful men? But for decades, they didn't. I understand, there's money in the game, but what does it say about our principles that no one was willing to stand up to him?
Well, it says a lot, I'm afraid, and not much of it very good. There's hope that obviously there's been some reforms. People have been shamed. Men keep their doors open and are more sensitive about being exposed as predators. But is that the long term what's going to be, or is it just the short term? Mm-hmm. We don't know the answer to that yet.
We've seen so many videos of him recently looking quite different than what he did at the height of his power. You've exchanged some 50 emails with him. What has that correspondence been like?
Well, Harvey doesn't like me. I profiled him in 2002 in The New Yorker, and he wasn't happy with the profile. But I'm doing a biography, and he became alarmed at some point that, my God, I want to be sure I get my say. So he began, originally he was going to do an interview with me on the phone from prison. His lawyer quelched that, saying, I can't allow my client on the eve of a trial in Los Angeles to talk to you. But eventually, Harvey, I then went back and said, how about emails? And he answered 25 or more emails of mine. In most cases, they were perfunctory emails. In some cases, he absolutely lied, claiming I had emails from his brother saying Harvey did the following, and Harvey then denied it. But I had in writing that he actually did it. But the bigger question I wanted to ask him, which I did, he didn't answer. And that question was, Harvey, when you put your head on a pillow at night after raping, let's say, Jessica Mann, how did you explain to yourself what you had just done? He didn't answer. He was silent on that.
Wow. Any chances for him on appeal?
Well, he already appealed in New York State, where he's serving a 23-year sentence, and he lost that appeal. He's got a trial in LA beginning in October and a potential trial in England after that. My guess is that Harvey will be in jail the rest of his life. He's in ill health. And his own lawyer at the trial, the sentencing in New York, which I attended every day, said, Your Honor, I hope you don't give him a 30-year sentence as the prosecution is asking for, because he will not live that long. His health condition is so parlous.
And what's interesting about him, too, he was not only extremely powerful in Hollywood, he was also a powerful political donor. Do you think, when these allegations were circulating around, why did people still open their doors to him and potentially expose themselves later on to having that relationship with him?
I think people were in denial.
Yeah.
He was exposed publicly for the first time in October 2017. But before that, he was a major contributor, political campaign contributor to Democrats and sometimes to Republicans as well. And Harvey was the ticket to Hollywood for these people and the ticket to vast amounts of money for their campaigns. And they thought he was a powerful maca, a big deal. And you want to get actresses to come and support you in your campaigns, actors, maybe Harvey can provide that ticket. So he was, if they heard rumors about Harvey, they ignored them.
The book is Hollywood Ending Harvey Weinstein, The Culture of Silence. For more, check out KenAuletto.com and follow him on Twitter. Ken, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.